Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Germany suffer another shocking defeat, this time at the hands of Holland. What did Holland do right? Where did Germany go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Holland beat Germany. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. Don't forget to click the bell below. It does provide you with daily notifications regarding our daily organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half and discuss what Germany did right and what Holland did right. Then we're going to get to the second half and discuss Germany's fight back and how Holland were able to kill off the game. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We start with Holland 4-3-3. Basically, they go with Memphis up front, out in wide areas. They go with Virgil and Babel, and in midfield, Wijnaldum, De Roon, and De Jong. Then we get to Germany, a bit of a switch. Uth up front ahead of Muller and Timo Werner. In midfield, they go with Toni Kroos and Emre Can ahead of Kimmich. So first, let's get to Germany and see what they did in the first half and how they were trying to get the upper hand against Holland. So we get into the first half, Germany often adopting in a 4-1-4-1. Without the ball, they did look pretty decent in the sense that they had their wider players really disciplined. They had the midfield battle intact. They had Chan stepping to De Jong. They had Kroos stepping to De Roon. They had Kimmich in the holding role, dealing with Wijnaldum breaking forward and aiming to protect space ahead of the back four. The fullbacks pressed out and closed down the wider players. And then they had 2v1 at the back. So anytime they tried to play balls into the channels, Boateng or Hummels did a good job of coming across to ensure that they swept up danger. And when they pressed from the front, it was very simple again, just pushing forward, clogging in that space, ensuring that Holland didn't have the opportunity to build out of the back. The youngsters in De Jong, who like to drop a bit deeper and dictate the tempo of the game, that didn't happen. Even Uth, who came on, stepping to De Ligt, stepping to Van Dijk, harrying De Ligt, stepping to Van Dijk in the sense that one time Van Dijk tried to clear the ball, it hit off Uth, but Van Dijk was lucky to get it back, and that showed that his work rate and his determination to do his job up front was on point. So that's where Germany were going about things. In terms of creating chances, they were really struggling in that avenue, and that was down to the fact that they couldn't really get players in behind, and they were struggling to really find Werner in 1v1 situations. When they did, Dumfries did a very good job, Dumfries did a very good job in the sense of really closing him down. And at the time, with Bergwijn not looking to push forward, you would even have Dumfries step to Hector and the ball being played out to De Ligt, and that's where Holland were struggling in the opening minutes. De Ligt looked a bit shaky, having a few nervy moments, and that's what did stem Germany to really play down the left-hand side, and they created some opportunities, and it stemmed from Muller shifting over into that space, trying to create the overloads. And what also happened there was the fact that we had Kroos drop off a bit deeper because De Roon was sticking tight on him. So when Kroos dropped off a bit deeper, he got away from the fact that De Roon would push into that space. Bergwijn sometimes did step into that space, but as the game wore on, he kind of stuck to his position. And with Kroos pushing off there, you'd have De Roon kind of push back into his midfield shape, somewhat offering Dumfries protection, but it didn't really work out for them. And Germany just didn't finish their chances. We look at one of the opening opportunities here, where what happens is that Kroos slides the ball into Muller, who holds that wider position. You have De Roon and Dumfries there. You have Werner in the narrow position. Ball played in. He plays it instantly into Werner. What happens here is that De Ligt steps as he plays it back to Muller, and Werner runs in behind him, and the ball is then played in between that space between De Ligt and Dumfries for Werner to get the ball into the left half space. He rounds Cillessen, but Cillessen came out quick, and Werner was only able to poke his effort wide. We look at another opportunity where we see the sense of, again, Bergwijn not tracking the run of Hector, but he gets sucked into that midfield position, and Hector moves out into the space. And what happens here is that you have Muller picking up the ball from Cruz, and Cruz instantly plays the pass. Then that's when the run comes in, and with him making that pass, what happens here is that Dumfries had already stepped to Werner. When Bergwijn sees that the ball is going into Muller, he tries to step, plays it into Hector. Then you have De Ligt trying to step, and Hector slides that ball in behind. And what happens there is that Werner had already completed his run in behind Dumfries. But what happens here is that his first touch is very poor, and it allows Dumfries to get across and clear his lines for a corner kick. So those were two opportunities where we saw, again, them pushing forward down the left-hand side, creating the overloads. There was another time where Cruz had slid the ball out wide to Werner, and Werner now is able to run at Dumfries. De Roon is there as well. But what happens there is that he locates Uth trying to drag De Ligt out of position. So he plays the ball into that space, but De Ligt does a good job of coming across and shrugging him off the ball. The other opportunities stem from two overhit crosses from wide areas, and then a pullback from Cruz into Muller, who forced Cillessen into a save. We had one instance where Bergwijn and Babel had swapped positions on the counterattack, and Bergwijn was trying to play Babel in behind the space of Hummels. Hummels intercepts the pass and instantly clips a long ball over Uth, who's able to break in, but Van Dijk is there. Uth cuts in on him, but fires a tame effort on goal. But that is where they were really finding their avenues. Down the left-hand side with Muller offering that overload. And then we'll get to one more opportunity where they were able to hit or bypass Holland's attempt to press from the front, and it led to a great Muller chance. So let's get to that. So when we get into Holland pressing Germany from the goal kick, what happens here is that you have the center back splitting out, you have Kimmich dropping into that space, and you have Wijnaldum pushing forward. What happens there is that Bergwijn ends up sticking with Hector. So Neuer plays the pass out to Kimmich. He sees that Wijnaldum stepping to him. He ends up playing it back to Neuer. That forces Memphis to drive at Neuer and try to get the ball. But Neuer is very good on his feet, so the ball ends up being shifted out to Hummels. Now you have Bergwijn stuck on Hector, and then you have Cruz dropping off. When Cruz drops off, you have De Ligt, out of all people, following him and sticking onto Cruz. When he sticks onto Cruz, what happens here is that the ball's played to him, but Cruz is able to hold him off well. And when he holds him off well, what happens there is that he pushes him off the ball, plays it into Kimmich, who's now free. You have De Ligt dropping back into his position, and he ends up finding Emery Chan, who's able to get on the ball. And what Chan is able to do is carry the ball across De Jong. He ends up running past De Roon, and now as he breaks forward, you obviously think that he's looking to run at Uth. But what happens here, and play the pass into Uth, but what happens here is that he plays an overhit pass between the center backs, and you have Muller breaking in behind Blind. He picks up the ball, takes the first touch, but he fires a shot into side netting. That was a great chance for Germany, able to play out of the back, bypass Holland's pressing. What happens there, Muller gets the opportunity to score once again, but he fails to get the job done. And that was Germany's half in a nutshell, getting into great positions but not finishing. And it goes back to the issue of not having a reliable goal scorer. So now let's get to Holland and see how they were able to push ahead and take the lead in going into halftime. When we get to Holland in the first half, they try to press Germany from the front. They didn't want Cruz and Kimmich to dictate the tempo from deep. So the way that they pressed was they had the front three stepping to the back line. They were fortunate that Ginter doesn't really offer much of an offensive threat. So at times they did gamble. They had Babel push out to Boateng. They had Memphis push out to Hummels. And they had Bergwijn step out to Hector. That left Wijnaldum with the job of stepping to Kimmich. For the most part, we had Memphis kind of sitting in front of Kimmich. They had Wijnaldum pushing out to him. And then what happened here was that they had Bergwijn step out to Hummels, in the sense that they've tried to block off the passing lanes into the fullbacks, and that's how they went about their business in terms of pressing for the most part. They wanted to ensure that they forced Germany to play long, and then they were relying on De Ligt and Van Dijk to deal with those aerial balls. When they weren't pressing from the front, they dropped off into a more of a 4-5-1. Bergwijn didn't do a very good job of stepping out to Hector, who eventually did cause an offensive threat, and Bergwijn ended up being a liability to his for his defensive work. And then you had out on the right-hand side, Babel following Ginter. Sometimes you feel like they possibly should have swapped flanks to ensure that Babel could do a job on Hector, but that wasn't the case here. As they dropped into a 4-5-1, they didn't really get going until after they took to lead. When you look at their chances prior to that, one, a long ball that Ginter ended up heading into the path of Bergwijn, who slid the ball in between the center backs for Memphis, but Neuer was off his line quickly to intervene. You think about the free kick that Memphis whipped in for Delight. He ended up nodding his effort on goal. That should have led to something as well. Prior to that, we got to see the best out of Memphis with his back to goal, his movement. You look at the build up to the corner kick, you see him drop off. It was Bergwijn who picked a loose ball. You see him drop off and pull out the marker and hold off Hummels. And what he does is he slides the ball out to Dumfries. Dumfries ends up delivering a cross into the box that Werner guides out for a corner kick. So you look at that and you think, okay, they get the corner kick, Neuer's out of position, he misjudges the ball, and you see the effort nodded off on goal, and eventually you have Van Dijk nodded back in the rebound. When you think about their other chances besides that, a lot of it stemmed to them bypassing Kimmich and no one really picking up Wijnaldum, who obviously had a threat at Memphis's movement. Think about them building out of the back, no real press on De Jong. He's able to drop off, pick up the ball. Uth eventually presses him, but he's able to find Wijnaldum, who drops off of Kimmich. Kimmich eventually steps and he pokes it by him, but the pass is a bit too heavy. Boateng comes across. When Boateng comes across, it falls to De Jong. Now De Jong sees Memphis pulling out Hector, and when he pulls out Hector, he's able to hold up the ball and play that reverse pass into Dumfries. Werner was already caught high. The ball delivered into the box. You see Wijnaldum run across Hummels. It goes through the 6-yard box. Ginter is able to guide it out wide before Babel could get onto it. That was one opportunity. There was another chance where you see them break on the counterattack, and it's Kimmich who is dispossessed by Memphis, which you see eventually a counterattack. Babel combines with Darun, and then De Jong breaks forward, holds off Ginter, and then ends up leading to Wijnaldum firing a shot inches wide. But we have to stick to Kimmich because this was key. Now we see Van Dijk push forward. You see Wijnaldum pull into that space. And we have Blind a bit higher with Ginter. What happens is that Wijnaldum dummies the ball. Once he dummies the ball, you have Kimmich come to him. It falls to Blind. Then you see Wijnaldum instantly drive into that space. And when he drives into that space, he runs off Kimmich and Blind flips it over to him. A center back comes across. You have Memphis peeling off. And he runs across Hector, who is able to flick the pullback over and fire a shot wide. Again, another warning sign, but again, Kimmich pulled out of position. The last chance, you see Wijnaldum storming forward on the counterattack. He skips past Hummels. He locates Memphis running into space and dragging out Hector. What happens there is that Kimmich comes across. Kimmich is then skipped past. He plays the ball back to De Jong, who instantly slides it to Dumfries. Then you have Memphis running off Emre Can, and he slides in between the center backs at the front post and knocks his effort inches wider than that. When you break it down as a whole, Memphis's movement was pulling the defenders out of position. No one was picking up Wijnaldum, and you could say that Kimmich was being bypassed and needed some protection in midfield. So when we look at the second half, it was about how Germany were going to rectify their issues and try to push ahead, whereas how would Holland continue to pose a threat? Would it solely be the counterattack? And when we get to the second half, we get all our answers. When we get into the second half, nothing really changed. Germany were still trying to get down the left-hand side. We saw it early on. We saw Kimmich pick up the ball, and we saw Hector get in behind Bergwijn. He's able to drive forward and then pick out Werner, who drifted out wide. Werner is able to run at goal, and what happens is that we see Muller get across Blind. Cross is played through the box, but Muller, for some reason, hesitates, and Blind is able to cut the pass off. That is one opportunity again where we're seeing them get down the left-hand side but not finishing in the final third. Another opportunity that we see is Boateng push a bit forward, and with Boateng pushing forward, he sees Uth drag out Van Dijk. So when he drags out Van Dijk, he's able to flick the ball instantly into Muller, who had shifted flanks, and Muller now had pushed into the left-hand side. he obtained a narrow position, and the ball's flicked to him. We see Dumfries step, but with Dumfries stepping again, it's Hector pulling out that left-hand side. Hector drives forward, and you want to see the cross into Werner, but again, that doesn't work out for him. It's blocked. Werner was ahead of Blind, but again, you're seeing the warning signs. They're trying to push forward, but Lowe wasn't happy with what was going on. He felt that he needed changes, and he brought on a bit of guile and Julian Draxler in the center of the pitch, and then he brought on Sané, both together, left-hand side. Now you have a legitimate direct threat. You had Werner move out to the right, and you still went with Uth up front. And what happened here was, as they looked to push forward, what we saw Holland's midfield bank split open. So that was one issue that they had going forward. The fact that Draxler was able to pick up the ball between the lines in the opening stages. You have Wijnaldum a bit higher. Draxler picking up the ball, skipping past both midfielders, sliding it wide to Sané, who waits for the overlapping Hector. Hector's pulled back into Draxler, skied over the net. We saw that combination on several occasions. Again, ball from Cruz this time, played in. Sometimes Cruz picked up the ball between Bergwijn and Memphis, picks it up from Hummels, finds Draxler. Draxler slides it to Sané. What happens here? Sané's looking to run on goal. He tries to pull it back to Uth. Uth fires his shot on goal, but it's blocked for a corner kick. We saw that combination a lot, like I said. Sané getting the ball out wide, running at goal. One time he tried to beat Dumfries, wasn't able to do that. There was one time where he was able to cut in and cut out, broke free into the box. His shot was blocked. We saw even Sané pick up the ball out wide, and Draxler move into that space, into the left channel, get the ball, pull it back, but the pullback was intercepted. Those two were causing a havoc, with either Sané running at Dumfries, Sané running in behind De Roon, and we'll get to their best chance in a second, and Draxler picking up the ball in good positions in between the lines and driving forward. The best chance of the second half, you could say, stems from Kimmich picking up the ball from deep. So Kimmich picks up the ball from deep. They're very narrow. What happens here is that he's able to attract the run of Dumfries, who was narrow, to step to him, and you have De Roon and you have Sané on the box. When he steps to him, you see De Roon kind of push over to Sané, which allows Kimmich to play that pass in behind for Sané to break free on goal. Sané breaks free on goal, should score, fires his shot inches wide. Besides that, you have Draxler getting another opportunity late on in the second half. He flashed his effort wide. You had Werner from a deflected cross, a volley and effort on goal. That was pushed away from Cillessen. When you look at the game as a whole, they had chances through the left-hand side in the second half. They were unable to execute. Sané and Draxler offered another threat, but also, again, not enough production in the final third. No, they weren't decisive, and now we have to get to how Holland were able to kill off the game. Now we get to Holland, Germany pushing forward, trying to get their center backs higher up the pitch, trying to get the wider players out, which essentially worked in the opening stage of the second half, with Hector being involved in so much of their attacking play. Babel did a good job down the right, and then in midfield it stayed the same. Wijnaldum dropping off a bit deeper, Cruz encountering some problems with De Roon, and we'll get to that in a second. But as you could see, so much space in the channels for their front three to exploit, and they did that to a T. We look at the opening stages, and Hummels and Boateng deserve some credit because they were able to come across and cover for each other, but at some point they're only able to do so much. You see Cruz pressed by De Roon, and what happens? He plays the pass into Chan. De Jong nips at it. You have Babel bypass Boateng, who steps across, pokes it by him, and then the ball is played into Memphis. Hummels is able to hold him off well. Boateng drops back into his position quickly. Cross is cleared, but again, a big warning sign for them. The big problem with Germany was the fact that they were so able, the ability to ease past them. You saw eventually Holland make changes. They changed the wide players, brought on Groeneveld, brought on Promes. We saw eventually Germany bring on Brandt at the same time. Werner moved out wide. Werner moved central, Brandt went out wide, but you could see, look at them press from the front, just Cillessen clipping the ball out. And what happens here is that you have Blind just win the ball over Ginter. He just wins the ball over Ginter, and again, you have a break set free, but Boateng tracked it well, was able to hold off the marker, and again, just like you say, the warning signs are there. You see them push forward once again. All the time, just simple long balls. You see Wijnaldum just clip a long ball into that left channel. You have Hector looking to run across. Memphis is able to apply pressure on him, nip him of the ball, drive forward. Boateng covers, but he's able to cut across him, and he's able to get a shot on goal, but it's a warning sign. And again, they're pushing forward. They're offering a legitimate threat, and that's the biggest worry here for Germany, is that as they were pushing the fullbacks forward, eventually you felt like Holland had an opportunity to close out the game. There's another opportunity again. Cruz dispossessed by De Roon, and this time the ball is played between the center backs for Memphis. Memphis is able to hold off the center backs, but he plays a reverse ball into Wijnaldum breaking forward. Wijnaldum should do better. He skies his effort over the net. Then we get to the build up to the goals. We have one, but again, we have an opportunity, and what happens here for the build up to the goal is that Boateng had already made a vital interception on Memphis. Then we see a pass from Hummels into Draxler. It's intercepted by Blind. De Jong had come, Ake had come on, moved to left back. We saw Blind move into midfield, and he offered more bite, intercepting the pass. Proms is able to break free down that side, and he's able to drive forward. He's able to play the pass behind the center backs for Memphis to squeeze past Neuer. You see towards the end of the game, just a simple ball one from Brandt and Werner messing up a throw-in, and it's Blind again who gets across. Ball from Groeneveld is eventually played into Memphis, who gets in behind Boateng, drives forward with pressure on, hits the crossbar. Then you get to the closing goal, the third goal, and again it's another pass into Draxler, and who steps in? It's Blind. Blind steps to him, pass is played to Memphis. Memphis dummies it knowing that Hummels is coming across. It falls to Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum is able to skip past Boateng, skip past Hector, and fire superb effort into the back net. But when you break the game down as a whole, Germany had their chances, not decisive in the final third. Eventually, Holland go up ahead in the first half. They're able to offer a threat through Memphis, through Wijnaldum. In the second half, Germany were the better side, but as they pushed forward, they constantly left gaps in the channels, in behind Boateng and Hummels, and eventually Holland finally made them pay, despite Draxler and Sané offering a brief change of the tide and offering Germany a brief glimmer of hope to eventually rescue the game. But meet me in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. What is wrong with Germany? What changes do they need to make? Is this Holland side the real deal? Can they challenge going forward and perhaps be a contender at Euro 2020? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.